I almost didn't stop. That's the thing I have to live with. I was riding the high fence line above Bitter Creek, same as I did every October before the first hard snow locked the passes, and I had my head down against the wind and my mind on nothing but getting back to the ranch before dark. I'd been riding alone a long time by then. 2 years since I'd buried my boy Eli. 2 years since my hands had grown quiet in the way that has nothing to do with rest. You learn to keep moving when stillness hurts. So I kept moving, and I almost missed her entirely. She was off the main trail by about 30 yards, sitting on a boulder with her boots off. I only caught her because my horse, a gray gelding named Cord, swung his head toward the tree line and wouldn't go forward. I looked where he was looking, and there she was, a woman, grown, alone, pack the size of a small mule, propped against the rock beside her. She was wrapping her right foot in a strip of cloth, torn from what looked like the hem of her coat. She didn't look up when Cord nickered. She was too focused on the foot. I sat there a moment. It was none of my business. Plenty of people walked the high country trails heading west, and most of them made it fine, and the ones who didn't weren't my concern. I had told myself that 100 times over the years. I was a man who had already given what there was to give. A wife to Fever a long time ago, a son to the creek 2 winters back, and I'd spent what was left of my capacity for carrying on the cattle and the fence line and the cold. I got down off the horse. "You hurt," I said. She looked up then. She had dark eyes and a face that had been out in the weather a good while, sunburned across the nose, chapped at the lips, tired in the particular way that isn't one bad day but a string of them. She didn't look frightened of me. She looked like she'd moved past frightened some miles back. "Blisters," she said. "I'll manage. How far you walking?" "Ridgecroft Settlement. On the western side of the pass." I knew Ridgecroft. It was a 2-day walk in good weather, and the sky to the northwest had gone the color of a bruise. There was snow in that sky. There was a lot of it. "You came up here alone?" I said. "I paid a supply rider to take me as far as the pass." He decided the weather was turning and went back. She said it flat, without bitterness, the way a woman says a thing she's already finished being angry about. I decided to keep going. I looked at the pack. It was enormous. I could see a bedroll tied to it, a cook pot, a canvas bag that looked to hold everything she owned in the world. She'd been carrying that up the mountain alone. "What's in Ridgecroft?" I said. "A cousin, maybe. She wrote last spring." I wrote back, but I don't know if she got it. A maybe cousin, a letter that might not have arrived. 2 days of mountain trail with snow coming and blisters bad enough she'd taken her boots off. "Get on the horse," I said. She looked at me for a long moment. Not suspicious exactly. Measuring. "I don't know you," she said. "Gideon Marsh. I run the Bitter Creek Ranch, 4 miles down this slope. It's a working ranch with a bunkhouse and a cook stove, and a spare room that's been empty since my son died. The snow coming off that ridge will be here before nightfall. You can sleep dry tonight, and I'll take you to the trailhead for Ridgecroft in the morning if you still want to go." She looked at the sky. She had the sense to read it right. "All right," she said. "Thank you." She told me her name was Nora Lane. She'd come from the Eastern Flats. She and her husband had tried to homestead for 3 years and failed. Bad soil, 2 dry summers, and then her husband had taken sick the previous winter and hadn't recovered. She'd sold what she could, packed what remained, and started west in the spring. She said all of this while I led Cord down the slope, and she sat in the saddle above me, and she said it, the same way she'd said everything else, plainly, without asking for sympathy. The way a person recounts a journey they've already decided they're going to finish. I didn't say much back. I wasn't built for conversation by that point in my life. But I listened, and that was something. The ranch was cold when we arrived, the way it always was in October. Cold in the walls and cold in the floorboards, though the main room warmed fast once I got the stove going. I showed her the spare room. It had a cot and a wool blanket and a chest that still had some of Eli's things in it. I moved the chest to the corner without explanation. She didn't ask. I cooked what I had, salt pork and beans and cornbread, and she ate 2 plates, without apology, and I respected her for it. Afterward, she washed her own dish without being asked and set it on the rack to dry, and I thought, she's not accustomed to being waited on, and she's not going to start now. Good. The snow came that night. By morning, there were 18 inches in the yard and more falling. and the pass to Ridgecroft would be closed until the thaw. She took the news without complaint. "I'll earn my keep," she said. "You don't have to," I said. "I know I don't have to," she said, and looked at me with those dark eyes until I looked away first. She cooked. She mended fence when the snow let up enough to work outside, wrapping her hands in rags because her gloves had worn through. She learned the horses' names and their habits, and Cord had never liked anyone but me, let her braid his forelock. She asked careful questions about the ranch, not out of nosiness, but the way a person asks when they're trying to understand a place well enough to be useful in it. I answered them. The weeks did what weeks do. November became December. I found myself planning meals around what she liked, and then catching myself at it and feeling foolish. She laughed once at something I said without meaning to be funny. A dry remark about a particular ornery steer. And the sound of it in the cold kitchen was so startling that I stood there, like a man who'd heard a bird sing in January. I'd forgotten what a laugh sounded like in those rooms. I told her about Eli one evening. I hadn't meant to. We were sitting by the stove and it was dark outside, and she had asked gently about the photograph on the mantel. I told her more than I'd planned. She listened to all of it, and when I finished she said, "He sounds like he was worth the grief." Nobody had ever put it to me quite that way. I went out to check the horses after that, just to be alone a minute. I stood in the cold barn and I thought, "You old fool, you've gone and let someone in." By February I had stopped thinking about spring, not consciously. I simply noticed one morning that I hadn't thought about the Ridgecroft Trail in some weeks, and when I examined that fact, I found it didn't trouble me the way I'd have expected. In March, when the passes began to clear, I saddled Cord and told her I could take her to the trailhead if she was ready. I said it to the stove, to her. Because I am a man who has never been able to make himself do the harder things looking straight ahead. There was a long quiet. "Is that what you want?" she said. I turned around then. "No," I said, "it is not." Shh. She was looking at me the same way she had that first morning on the mountain, measuring, deciding. The way a woman looks when she's deciding to trust something that hasn't been proven yet. Then she nodded. Once, slow. The way a person agrees to something they've already made their peace with. "Then I'll stay," she said. We were married in April, by the preacher who rode the Bitter Creek circuit, in the front room, with the stove going and Cord looking in through the window. Because she'd left. The glass cracked so he could hear. It was the quietest wedding I expect the circuit preacher had ever performed. Afterward, she hung her winter coat on the peg next to mine. And that was that. I think sometimes about that October afternoon. Cord turning his head and me almost not stopping. I think about the supply rider, who left her on the trail, certain he was being sensible. He was right about the storm. He was wrong about everything else. She made this place a home again. I won't dress it up beyond that. After Eli, after the long quiet years, I had stopped believing the rooms could hold warmth. Nora Marsh proved me wrong, the same way she'd proven the flats wrong when she walked away from them with everything she owned on her back. She was not a woman built to be left behind. I should have known that from the first minute. Her on that boulder, wrapping her own foot, getting ready to keep walking. Cord knew. That's why he stopped.